In the previous video, we were looking at the quartiles, the IQR, things of that nature. The reason why we use those is so that we can draw what we call a box plot, or also considered box and whiskers. It's a way to display the data visually and draw informal conclusions. It's a visual representation of what is considered a 5-number summary. Now that 5-number summary includes the minimum, your Q1, Q2, Q3, and your maximum value. Your box part of it will be your Q1, Q2, and Q3. So you'll have a box, literally, at Q1, Q2, Q3. Then you will have basically a dot at your maximum, and then a dot at your minimum, and you will draw a line to your box. Box and whiskers. That's why it's sometimes called box and whiskers. Okay? So we've already looked at this serial data set. We've determined that our minimum value is 3. Our maximum value was 47. We had a Q2 of 30. We had a Q1 of 10 that was right here. And then we had a Q3 that was 45.5. So what we'll do is we'll start here at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then I'll come back through here and put in 5s. So again, I will put a dot where about 3 would be. I'll draw a vertical line at 10, my Q1. A vertical line at Q2. A vertical line at Q3. I'll create a box with those 3 numbers. And then I will draw a dot at where about 47 would be my maximum. And I would connect those. Now, the reason why we can draw some informal conclusions about this is notice the length of the whiskers. This one's much shorter than this one. So this would give us some information about our data sets. And we can go into that much later, but it will give us some conclusions. Also, using our quartiles, we can calculate what are considered our outliers. Things that are statistically higher or lower than the majority of our data. Now, sometimes we look at data and say, okay, this 3 is much lower than all the rest. But is it statistically lower than the rest of our data? We have to look at based on the quartiles. And an outlier is any value that is more than 1.5 times above or below the IQR. These outliers, they have drastic effects on our mean as well as on our standard deviations, which we will discuss in just a little bit. But let's look at how to actually calculate outliers. Let's look at this 5-number summary. We have a minimum value of 13, We have a maximum value of 97. We have our Q1, our Q2, and our Q3. And we want to calculate the IQR and determine if 97 is an outlier. So we need to calculate the IQR. IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So Q3 was 45.5 minus 17. So 45.5 minus 17 will give us a 28.5. So that's my IQR. That's that inner quartile range. Then we need to determine what is considered the lower fence and the upper fence. Anything outside of these fences would be considered an outlier. So the lower fence will start at Q1 and we will subtract 1.5 times the IQR. So we'll start at 17 minus 1.5 times a 28.5. And this 1.5 is a standard value that will not change. Okay? So we'll have 17 minus 42.75, which is going to give us a negative number, which is okay. Our fences can be negative numbers. But the question here is, my minimum value, is it less than a negative number? No. So I don't have a outlier on this minimum side, on my lower side. Now let's check the upper side. We start with Q3 and we add 1.5 times our IQR. It's like we give ourselves that buffer room. And so we take 45.5 plus 1.5 times 28.5. So that's 45.5 plus the 42.75. Notice we are adding and subtracting the exact same value. And when we do so, we get an 88.25. This is my upper fence. So anything outside of those two numbers, a negative 25.75 and an 88.25, would be an outlier. Well, we have a maximum value of a 97. 97 is an outlier because it's outside of those fences. Anything outside those fences is considered an outlier.